Wait for that thing to go away. I'm live. Don't I feel special? I'm alive. Okay, so someone, forgive me for not recalling your name, has been asking about what do you need for a home studio. I was originally going to do like this big planned out video, but I've realized if I just don't do this video, it's never going to happen. So I figured I'll do it live too. So if anyone has questions or some suggestions even, I'm totally down. So let's answer some of this. So I've got sort of a notepad here to organize my thoughts. But we're going to be covering, a lot of people like to cover like the minimum things you need for your studio. We'll definitely be talking about like how to start when you're starting in your brand new. What are like the most essential things? And then I'd also like to mention some other things like plugins and things that they might be expensive, but they're definitely worth having, at least in my experience, so that as you do get funds and begin to accumulate stuff, you'll have a bit more of a direction of where you're going to develop. So let's go ahead. Let's jump right in. So first off, there's two sides to your studio. There is the hardware side, hardware. And then there is the soft synth, or just not soft synth, but software side, software. Okay, so there's these two sides. In the hardware, I'm including things like the room you're in, the computer, the kind of computer you have, like all the stuff in the computer, any outboard gear, which I'm not really gonna list outboard gear, but there is one piece. I'm going to list the interface. So the audio interface, that's really important and something I didn't understand that I needed. Speakers, speakers slash headphones, and so these are kind of, I think, just you've got to have these if you're gonna do something in audio. And I guess you could include like acoustic treatment and stuff here, but I'm not gonna. Software, there's really only two things in software. You've got the DAW you're gonna use, and then you've got the plugins you're gonna use. Plugins. And that's it. So it's not that big of a list, and some of these things are even optional, even on this list. So this is a very minimal list. It's not super detailed yet, so let's cover just the most straightforward stuff. So room. You're going to want a room, and that's it. Some people make a huge deal out of their space, but when you're just starting out, it's really more important for you to prioritize getting a computer and getting a DAW. Those are the two most important things. You can literally work without anything else on the, well, I guess you're going to need some form of speakers and headphones, but a computer and DAW should be like your first priority. And when I started, because these are the DAW and the computer are kind of like large investments. And if you already have a DAW that you know you like, then go with that one. So for me, it was easy. I loved FL Studio, so I just went straight for FL Studio. I was like, FL Studio is really great, so I'm going to do that one. But I was in sort of a dilemma when I started because there's no way I could afford getting the computer and the DAW at the same time. And I actually bought my computer first. And I already had sort of a not so great computer. And I kind of regret buying the computer first. If I could do it over again, I would get the DAW first. But hopefully you've got enough funds where you can get something working at the beginning. I had really, really bad speakers and headphones. It did not matter at all when you're new. You've got other things to worry about, like learning how to operate the DAW, like at all. And then from there, you can worry about upgrading other parts of this setup. So for the DAW, there's a couple options that come to mind right now that are like really great. So obviously, I'm in favor of FL Studio. That's the one that I love. FL Studio is great. I went for the Signature Edition. Signature. Because it came with Maximus, which was a big deal to me, and a couple other plugins that I was like, dude, I need these plugins. The one plugin it didn't come with that for me was important was Harmor. I really wanted Harmor, like a lot. So I bought Harmor separately. And yeah, so FL Studio, but there's some other great ones. Ableton's great. There's now the DAW also is going to depend on what you're doing. So the style of music you make and the kind of production, if you're making hip hop, man, I think FL would be great for you, or Ableton would be great for you. But there's some others here. So like I see a lot of people go out and get Pro Tools, and I really think this is a big mistake for most people. If you're going to be recording and stuff, Pro Tools is great. Studio One is a really great go-between. I don't think they're MIDI editing. Hey, what's up, man or woman? I don't know. I don't know. Studio One is okay for sequencing. Like it can do it really well. It's just FL Studio's piano roll is just a dream to work with. So if you're going to be using a lot of software synthesizers and you're not going to be using as much recordings and things, then I think that FL Studio or Ableton will suit you better. But if you're going to be doing more recording, Pro Tools, Studio One, Cubase, and if there's some like other DAWs that are way less there's like other types of DAWs, so like sheet music, Finale, those kinds of things. But for what we're talking about for a studio, I would select probably one of these. If I didn't list yours, like Reaper is another great one. Reaper. I've not personally used. I mean, I've fiddled with Reaper, but not like used it. There's a bunch here. Logic, if you're on Mac, is a great one. So you've got options in the DAW department. Honestly, the best advice I can give you for the DAW department is just to download the demo and get to trying. But when you're new, it's hard to tell what you like, what you're gonna like more. So you're gonna want to pick what kind of music do you expect to produce and make. What are your interests? So if you're gonna do more recording and things, highly recommend checking out Studio One and Cubase. If you're gonna be doing a lot more beat making and production, Ableton and FL Studio will probably cover you a bit better in that department. But all the DAWs can do everything. It's just a matter of the different workflows and things. So yeah, there's a bunch like Acid Pro 10, I think it is now, Acid Pro 10. I was fiddling with that one the other day on a stream. So all right, that we're gonna call that good on the DAW. But you're gonna see there's like payment options for these. If you're a student, you can get a lot of these way cheaper. Like you can get Ableton way cheaper. When Cubase had their 10-year anniversary, it went off on half price, which made it extremely affordable. Studio One also has frequent sales. Pro Tools has a rental thing where you can rent it for a bit and try it out. MIDI is kind of a nightmare in Pro Tools right now. So if you're doing anything with MIDI, I really recommend looking at some other DAW. And yeah, Reaper, I believe, is only like $60 in the first place. And there's like a free download, I believe, of it. It's something that I'll need to look more into. But anyways, that's the DAW. Definitely look into those. Watch tutorials from different people who make who are well known for that DAW, and just get a vibe for how it works. And you'll also find an educational guide along your path to doing this stuff. All right, cool. So next up, we're going to talk about the computer. So the computer, there's two types of computers you can have. You can have a tower or a laptop. Now, for the tower, okay, so if you have the choice, if you're going to be really mobile, maybe you're a student and you go to school a lot, a laptop would probably be better for you. But if you really want a system you can trick out later, and I think it's going to be just more affordable in the long run, I think a tower is a better option. Like I would recommend tower all day long. I've had you're sacrificing a lot of things with laptop, but you get a lot of convenience with laptop. So the things you're going to want to pay attention to are your CPU, your RAM. Now, with RAM, this is going to vary heavily depending on what you're doing, but 8 gigs, even though it's small, everyone's going to tell you to get 16. Gigabytes, whatever. Everyone's going to tell you to get like 16 or more, and I would recommend if you can get 16, get 16 or more, 16, 32. But you can have a well-functioning DAW when you're brand new for 8 gigs. So, and usually RAM is upgradable pretty easily. Even in like the laptop I have, I can upgrade it. So CPU, the only thing you want to concern yourself with on the CPU is a high dual core speed count thing or whatever. Dual core. Or not dual core. What do they call it? Okay, so there's like multi-core threading. Oh, single-threaded processing or whatever. You want that to be high because audio has to be processed in serial fashion. So it can't process multiple things at once. It's got to process the thing and then give it to the next thing to process it and then give it to the next thing to process. It can't like send it to all those things at once and process them all at once. It just can't do that. Now, most CPUs today will work great. CPUs like the i5s with 4 cores will still work great. You can really honestly run a pretty underpowered laptop by gaming standards and still do quite a bit of audio stuff on it, no problem. Oh yeah, what's up? Yeah, that you were the one that was asking. So, yeah, so as far as CPU goes, I know there are people who have the better technical terms. I go onto that benchmark comparison website and I usually compare the different ones. If you're getting a laptop, you're definitely going to, I mean, more cores usually I think is going to be better for just in general. Because when you're buying a PC for production, usually your needs will be met along the way. You're typically not going to be pushing it as hard as it can go unless you anticipate getting some really heavy processing hungry plugins. Like you might not be able to run 9 instances of Serum with like Unison all the way at 9, but you'll be able to do what you need to do. You just have to be smart about your processing management. So an i5 or is like what I would recommend, an i5 or higher. An i7 is kind of like the bang for your buck right now, and then i9s are starting to hang around. As far as AMD processors go, I'm a little less savvy with AMD, but I recently built a tower for a friend that had the 3600X, the Ryzen 3600X. That would be great as well. And you're going to see that they actually have lower single core processing abilities versus the multi-core, but it's so high, it does not matter. Like when you're brand new, don't worry so much about it. You can go much cheaper on the CPU than I think you realize. So there's that. Now for a CPU, you can get one that can do the job for like $300, but this is like a minimum. Like your thing can turn on and it can run plugins, and you're gonna run into probably CPU caps and stuff along the way. When I started, I had a PC build that I kind of wanted to build. Now this was like, well, when I bought the PC, geez, I don't even know. It was more than 7 years ago. It was a scary amount of time ago. I spent $1,000 on my first one. I saved up. I actually had gotten my first like job, and this was one of the things I was really looking forward to buying. So I spent 1,000, and because you're gonna have to worry about other stuff like OS and all that kind of stuff, I picked Windows and went from there. But as far as towers and laptops, I see people sweating over it. Honestly, just make sure it's got 8 gigs of RAM and some memory. And when you're brand new and you don't have a lot of stuff, a small hard drive, it could be really worth it. And SSDs have recently become extremely affordable. So you can get an SSD, but even if you could go even cheaper and get a lot more storage is super, super cheap. I'd start out with at least 500 gigabytes. This is minimum. The system I'm running now literally has, hey, what's up? The system I'm running now literally has like 8 terabytes, somewhere around there. It's stupidly high. You do not need that much storage. It's way overkill. Also, it is getting dark in this room. Just a sec. Okay, Google. Turn on room light.
All right, turning the room
Okay,
light on.
thank you. All right, so anyways, I'm a bit better when I'm like actually sitting down and building because I'll be looking at all the stats and all the things. You might be wondering, what about the GPU, and those kinds of things. Hey, what's up, Taylor? And thanks for having a name that's like really easy to say. And Yoink Scoob, Shaggy was like one of my heroes growing up. GPU, you don't need to worry about really. It is nice to have some processes in the DAW can take advantage of GPU accelerated stuff. And also it could take advantage of some multi-core stuff. It's just your main audio processing isn't generally going to do that. So that's why you hear people always talking about focusing more on the single threaded core count or whatever they call it for the single core performance. So anyways, yeah, GPU don't need to worry so much about. If you want to do like gaming and stuff, you could worry more about it, but it's not too important for audio people. So, okay, so computer, there it is. Computer range. I mean, I would look at spending anywhere from 300 to 1,000. In this case, I think 1,000, you get something really great. If you want like a PC that's just like really beefy, 1,500 can get you a pretty monstrous build. You're going to want to invest your most money in the CPU because that is going to be the thing that does your processing. So you're going to want to get basically the best CPU you can get. Audio interface. That's another interesting one. There's a lot of great brands out there for audio interface. I run 2 interfaces for my needs. But when I started on a 6i6 Focusrite. Focusrite. And I actually started with this because I had a cousin who was selling all his stuff off, and the 6i6 just happened to be the one he had. I didn't even know what it was when I bought it. Like, that's how little I knew. So what the audio interface does is it's an external sound card. So this is where you're going to plug your mics into when you get microphones. Oh, that's something we should probably add to our list. We should add microphone mics. So let me just let's go ahead and look here. Let's look through here. I'm going to move this off to the side at some audio interfaces. So there's a bunch of options when it comes to audio interfaces. Let's open this up. And it showed up on the wrong screen. All right. So Focusrite has some great stuff. Focusrite Scarlett 2i2. This is the one that if you go on like Reddit, everyone's going to recommend this one to you. It is bus powered, so you'll have to have it plugged in, but it's extremely portable and insanely small. And they have phantom power, which is nice. So this is the 48 volts. So there's different types of microphones. So you're gonna want to get an interface that supports phantom because it just opens up a lot of options down the line. And what it is this is a combo jack. So there's different kinds of wires for different gear, and a combo jack can handle both types. It can handle the 1/4-inch input, and it can handle the XLR input, which is, for example, the mic I'm using right now is the SM57, and this is one that like can handle both of them. So some combo jacks, very, very flexible, very small, and this handles all your sound processing. With the number of students that I've worked with, a lot of them I've convinced to do the plunge and pick up an interface, and they always report to me that their DAW crashes less now, and their audio processing is significantly better. The software does not lag behind anymore, and that's because this is going to come with its own audio driver, and it's been made to handle audio. So this is really great. I have a lot of experience with Focusrite. There are moments that I have definitely been frustrated with it, but for the price and especially when you're just getting into it, it's a great beginner price. So this is one I can highly recommend. I had a friend who was running a Behringer interface that was kind of similar to the Scarlett 2i2. And then Native Instruments has one called the Complete Audio, and that's another great one that you could try out. I have the first gen 2i, well, my brother has the first gen 2i2. I've got a 6i6, and I picked up an 8i8 for really cheap, just at like a thrift store. And then I needed interfaces that were bigger for some of the recording stuff I do now. So now I run an 18i20, which has just been amazing. Sounds great. You're also going to hear people talk about what's called a preamp. So when your microphone picks up a signal, it's extremely small and it needs to be amplified. And it hits what's called a preamp stage, which its whole purpose is to turn that signal up. And there's different ways of designing preamps and some are pretty noisy and some aren't very noisy and they sound really good. And then you get into like, they introduce a difference in tone to the recording because they're running through different gear, right? So some gear is going to sound different than other gear. And so the Focusrite has good, clean preamps. You're going to hear people say that, meaning they're very transparent. They don't get in your way and they don't introduce noise. So I can recommend them. There are other interfaces out there that do introduce noise and can be problematic. And usually if you just do a quick Google search and look at, and now when you do the Google search, go to like Reddit, go to the EDM production thread, find a Discord with people who know about this stuff. They'll easily start to, hey, what's up? They'll easily start to tell you their experiences and what they recommend and all those things. And there are going to be a lot of people who are going to say a lot of opinions. Like I've got opinions about stuff. Just be careful, take everything with a grain of salt, and just make your own decision. But that's, as far as this goes, I think people underestimate this. Now, this is optional right when you're starting. You can run with an Audio for All drive. So they have this drive called the Audio for All. And FL Studio actually automatically installs it for you in the driver, which I think is pretty cool for them to do that because now they have their own. But there's this Audio for All driver, And ASIO drivers are different than the main driver for your computer, which they're called like WASAMP drivers, Windows Audio Sample Device, or whatever it is. So there's a separate driver for like when you open up Chrome and when you open up like games. They're going to use the Windows drivers. And Windows drivers are cool because you can have a lot of things open at the same time. Like you can have Chrome open, you can have a game open, you can have a bunch of like other programs open, and there's no problem. One of the first things you'll notice if you do the ASIO for all is you can have one program open and it's going to take all your audio, but your DAW will run significantly better. So you can run with the ASIO for all for now and completely skip the interface if you're brand new. I again think it's really worthwhile. I've had mixed the Focusrite driver support has been incredibly dodgy for me, and it has with everyone. You'll find an entire slew of people who've had problems with Focusrite getting it to work with your computer. So I've actually looked around quite a bit at other options just because I'd like a different interface just to give it a try, and hopefully it'll be a bit smoother with it just getting it to work with stuff. But in general, I've had a very positive experience. But I do want to highlight that because I'm actually running off a driver from like 4 years ago because it's the only stable friggin' driver I can find for my computer. So yeah, that can be kind of frustrating. But this is an option, totally optional. So what do we have next? Oh, let's talk about mics. Okay, so when you're new, it's wise to have a mic or two. And there's two types of mics. When I say two types, I mean the way they connect to your computer. So if you don't go with the audio interface, you're going to need to get a USB mic. And if you're only going to record your voice and things for like talking, those can be fine. But if you really want something that's got like some really nice quality to it, you're going to want to get an XLR mic. Oh, a good MIDI keyboard. Oh my gosh. I have a very strong opinion about that one. You'll see this actually in a lot of videos. They show this keyboard. I run the Alesis V25. I don't know if that's coming up on screen. This keyboard has been a massive dream for me just in like how well it's run. Alesis V25. We'll go back to the mics in just a sec. So they've got like bigger keyboards, but this keyboard was under $100. See right here. And it's got its own programmable stuff. I like the keys. I like the feel. It is bigger, but it's got buttons. It's got pads. You can program the sensitivity on the pads. Mod wheel and pitch bend wheel are small, but they feel really good. Like even after having it for like 5+ years, they still feel great. So this is a great keyboard that I would highly recommend. I actually recently got some Lumis. Let me see. Let me pull up OBS so I could see what you guys are seeing. So I recently got some Lumis. And these things are freaking wicked cool. Watch this. Look at that. You can't tell me that's not cool. Like, holy cow, is that cool? I would not recommend it as a beginner. They're built for beginners if you want to learn piano or something, but as far as flexibility on a MIDI controller, these things don't have the flexibility. They're cool. They're really I think they're really great, but as far as like they don't have the buttons or the knobs, or the knobs are a big thing too. So I can highly recommend this one. So that's my recommendation for that department in the MIDI keyboard for a cheap keyboard. You can find keyboards that are even cheaper, but honestly, this one was spectacular. And you get Ableton Live Lite with it. At least I did when you purchased it. You can get that from almost anywhere though. But it came with this, and that was kind of cool. It was my first introduction to Ableton. So yeah, so we've covered that. Microphones. Okay, so yeah, you've got your USB and you've got your XLRs. I really highly recommend getting an audio interface and getting a XLR microphone. Which XLR mic? I would recommend the SM57. My mouse is not responding. There it goes. SM57, you'll see this in studios. I'm talking into one right now. They sound awesome. They're built like a tank. You could, like, there was an ad where someone was hitting a hammer into a board with it. That got kind of famous because that's how tough FM57s are. They are a dynamic microphone, which means they don't require phantom power, but you do have to gain them up quite a bit. And that also is determined by your preamps. So on the interface, the Focusrite interfaces, it, you have to turn them up really high before you start to get gain. That's just how they work, and different gear is going to be like that. But yeah, SM57 is has been great. I would recommend this one. You do have to talk pretty close to it. I see a lot of people try and talk from back here, and yeah, there's gonna be some suffrage. So if you want to talk further away, another microphone that's really cheap, and you'll see this all over the place, is the AT2020. Extremely cheap microphone. You'll find loads of reviews on it, but it is a cardioid microphone. I mean, not cardioid. It is a condenser microphone, and so you're going to need phantom power to make it work. So the way a dynamic microphone works is it has a magnet surrounded by a coil, and when the magnet moves, it induces a current in the coil, and that's how it takes the air, and that moves the magnet, and it creates the current. And so that's why it doesn't need a phantom power. But a condenser microphone is going to have two plates, and then it's going to put a charge on these plates. And then when you talk, the plates are going to move, and that's going to change the electric field between the plates. And that is how you're going to get your voltage. So that's why you need phantom power for those to work. Now, there's a third type that gets brought up a lot called ribbon mics. Phantom power can damage ribbon mics, but you don't really, when you're new, don't even worry about ribbon mics. So yeah, this is a great one. The AT2020 or the SM57, I think, are good starter microphones. You're going to very quickly find out microphones can be extremely expensive. Like if you can, go for the AKG 414. That microphone is super flexible, has all these different polar patterns. And that's something else you should be aware of. So there's these things called polar patterns, which are, does an audio interface have a preamp? Yes. If it doesn't, you should get your money back. Is it worth thinking about getting? Yeah, Arturia keyboards are really good. There was one called Arturia. There's one in particular that's very, very popular. Keyboard. It's like the Beat Step or whatever. I've actually looked at getting it myself several times. Just go to their website. Yeah, so anyways, those microphones, those are the ones I recommend. If you want a good USB mic, XML, if I remember correctly, it might be XLM. XML, I'm pretty sure, has pretty decent USB mics. Because a USB mic has to have a converter in it for the digital side. KeyStep Pro. This is the one that I was like, man, that looks like a freaking amazingly flexible keyboard. I've got an S88 behind me over to the side there. That's also a really awesome keyboard. But again, that one's very expensive. It does not really feel like a real piano if you want one that feels like a real piano. But yeah, Arturia makes some great stuff as well. So as far as microphones go, if you do pick up a mic, something common that people forget is you're going to need the cables for the microphone. So you're going to want to get some XLR cables. And they're actually pretty cheap to make if you want to make your own. And if you buy a MIDI keyboard, you're going to want to check if it has room for a sustain pedal. Sustain pedals are extremely useful. It's what when you push a pedal on piano and you hit the key, it lets the note keep ringing. Those are incredibly useful. And a lot of keyboards actually don't have sustain pedal inputs. So you're going to want to check to see if it has one. At least this V25 does. And so that's really, really nice. And some keyboards like the S88, that's like $1,000 keyboard, but it has all kinds of inputs on the back. It's extremely, extremely flexible. Very high quality keyboard. All right, so that's the, let's go down our list here. So we've talked a little bit about the room. Don't sweat the room at all when you're starting. And okay, let's go into speakers and headphones. So speakers, if money's tight, you want to spend money on some decent speakers, but there are speakers out there that can get you started. So when you use speakers, you're going to be listening to it through your room as well. Your room's going to influence it. So acoustic treatment's recommended, but you can get away without it. You're definitely going to want to do something about it though. I'm really contradicting myself. You want acoustic treatment, but JBL is a great brand that's got some pretty inexpensive speakers that you could try out. And you're going to want near field speakers. And these are pretty common in the studio. KRK is another one. JBL, JBL near fields monitors. Yeah, this one, the JBL. I actually had these for a while. Right now, I'm using the Kali MK or the Kali 600s, I believe is the model. Yeah, so this is the JBL. They're decent for what they do. You're also going to see the, yeah, the KRKs are also very popular. You see these in a lot of studios. You'll see these everywhere. And you'll also see, and then I'm using the Kalis, Kali Audio. Also, they're near field. I believe I have like the middle one. That's how long it's been since I've looked. If you're looking at doing a setup where you plan on doing a ton over your speakers, you're gonna want to invest in like making your room acoustically usable. So, but these are all pretty affordable speakers for their price, and so they're good. When you want to though, you're gonna really want to invest in something that really steps up the game speaker wise. If you plan to start working heavily over speakers. So I also, for the headphones, there's a bunch of types of headphones, never ending. But the one I use right now the most is the Audio Technica, so the AT-M50s. Now these ones you're gonna hear them get totally murdered by audio people and also loved by like audio people. So these are the M50s with the wire. They are like, oh, they're discontinued? What the heck? No way. I don't believe it. All right, here they are. What the heck? What is this? All right, M50s. They're like 150. They are spectacular for what they do. They some of them have this prior like they have a detachable cable, but it's like a weird attachment, so that's kind of lame. Oh yeah, and the Rolly Seaboard. So someone mentioned the Rolly Seaboard in chat. I would love a Rolly Seaboard. They are spectacular. These headphones, by the way, are extremely popular. So you're gonna want to get something that's what's called a low impedance headphones, not super low, like 80 ohm impedance. And what that means is when you plug your headphones into an output, like your headphone output or whatever, you're going to have it's going to provide some resistance to the circuit. And if they are very high impedance, meaning they provide a lot of resistance, you're going to have to turn the volume up more to get your headphones to be loud. And in studios, that can be a really good thing because they can drive it really hard, meaning the preamp can get really loud or the output, the headphone amp can play really loudly. But for at home, typically you don't want that. Now there is something to be said. They can help prevent noise, but for the most part, you're going to want something that's somewhere between like 30 to 80 ohms. And then I've actually got a pair of high impedance headphones back here. Come here. Get off of the thing. All right, so these are the oh, someone's tossing out some recommendations. Yeah, I know. What the heck's up with the discontinued? And they're sold out here. I don't know what's happening. What is Audio Technica doing? These are the DT990s. They are open back. So there's two types of headphones. You have closed back, which they can provide problems with bass, but it's not a super big deal. And I was reading a post. Someone had made a list of like really well-known mixers and producers who mix over headphones that are way below general standards for audio people. And so like just having good ears and referencing in a lot of places is going to go a long ways. But as far as speakers versus headphones, I would highly recommend buying headphones first. You can take your headphones with you everywhere you go. They're going to be a constant when you're mixing. You get to know the sound of them and how they translate over other places. I do a lot of work over headphones. It's very common. If you have like a really nice studio setup, then you'll hear those people attest to it because it's a nice setup. But when you're starting out, I would definitely go over headphones first. So yeah, these are DT990s. They are 250 ohms. The Focusrite drives them just fine. but it's not bus powered either. Like I'm plugging it into an actual power supply. There are some others out there. I can't remember what it's called. These are extremely comfortable headphones, the DT990s. The DT770s, you'll see a lot of people wearing these. They compare them to pillows on your ears. And I did a pad replacement on these headphones that make the M50s much bigger. And when you have your headphones on, the space between your ears and the drivers and the headphones is called the sound stage. And so when people talk about sound staging with headphones, they're going to say, oh, they have a very wide soundstage or a very narrow soundstage. And so you're going to want to consider that. I have big ears, and for me to wear headphones that sort of just clap on my ears is extremely painful. So I got to the point where I just couldn't handle it. So I had to get more comfortable headphones or I was going to go mad. And this is one that's highly recommended by people. Extremely, it's this one, but it's closed back. Now, if you're going to be recording a bunch and you're going to be like doing what I'm doing right now, closed back is great because people will totally be able to hear what you're listening to through these. And you'll get a lot more headphone bleed if you're recording like a vocalist or something through closed back. There's like vents, it looks like vents on the back here. And so, but they're very transparent. They don't have the bass problems that these headphones do. So closed back will have more bass problems and things. There is a software you can get that can apply correction to your headphones called, I believe I have it on this computer right now, SonarWorks Reference 4. And this will, you can even get custom measured headphones from them that measure your specific pair. Because there's some general problems, but your specific pair is going to have a unique set of problems. You can actually get it measured by them. You can even send in your headphones to get them measured and sent back. And this will have a correction curve that'll do it. I don't have it on right now because it's been fighting with some of my other drivers. So I turned it off for this system. But you can actually open it up as a plugin. And this will apply a correction while you're mixing. As well as that, so that sort of fixes some of the problems. And also, some headphones you'll see like, oh, one side will be brighter than the other, and that's just happens to you sometimes. Most pairs don't do that, but some definitely have a difference, and so they can also fix that for independent speaker side adjustments. And yeah, so there's that. There is one other thing I wanted to mention. You're going to hear people always ask me about this, burning in your headphones. So the notion is your headphones aren't like ready to use yet. Like they're stiff. So there's a driver that physically moves to create air pressure waves. So it receives a voltage coming from your signal, right? That's the whole impedance thing. So here we've got like 80 ohm impedance, 250 ohm impedance. I would recommend the 80 just because you can get them louder. But when people will say, well, they're stiff, so you need to, what you need to do is you need to burn them in, play white noise through them to get them to burned in. That's like one of those like audiophile statements. It's not really that true. You don't need to do any of that. In fact, in some cases, I think some people will damage their headphones because they don't know what they're doing. So anyways, that's headphones. Let's go next on our list here. Headphones, we've talked a bit about mics, and we've talked about DAWs. Let's go into some plugins. So some plugins for me that were sort of big deals for me. There was one suite that I bought. I bought Complete 10 Ultimate. And this was one that I saved up for at work. And I went in with cash and just straight up bought it. I was like, this is what I want. I need this one. It comes with a load of stuff. And there are a couple of things in here that are super worth having. Contact 6 is an enormous plus in your arsenal. Now this is around 600. I bought the highest tier one that was available at the time. I've had this thing for years. I always do the summer upgrade. So every summer they do this. They're actually doing it right now. The Summer of Sound. And you can get it for like 50% off upgrades and updates. So the idea is you bite the bullet the first time and buy in, and then you upgrade. If you want to be really smart, you can go to another website like JJR Audio, and buy it for buy the cheapest pack for way cheaper. Buy like, I think Select is the lowest, and then pay the 50% upgrade, and it's actually cheaper than just buying it outright. So that's a really clever way. But this thing comes with so many synths, it's obnoxious. So let me open up FL here. And let's take a look at some of these. Some of you guys already know quite a bit about these. So I like FL Studios for just their native plugins. And when people say native, it just means that plugin, it has like an actual formal meaning. But most people, when they're saying it, it just means the plugins that come with FL Studio. I think they're really great. You can accomplish totally professional mixes with them. But this is Contact. It's a sample player. All these libraries are things I bought later. So a lot of other companies develop sounds for Contact. You can get some really beautiful sounds, but a lot of these, well, maybe not those, but down here, not even these. Down here, these ones are all included with Contact and Complete. And so you get some really nice drum kits. You get some like very cinematic things. And you can go on and look. You get some pianos. The Grandeur is in here, and it's one of my favorite pianos, this one. So I've got my MIDI keyboard unconnected now because I pulled it off to show you guys. But the Grandeur's great. And yeah, I'm not going to plug it in. We'll do that later. So anyways, Contact is this. It's basically like the ultimate preset library. It's amazing. You're going to hear people talk about Massive a bunch. This is, again, it's going to depend on what kind of music you're making. But there's Massive. There's also Massive X now, which I haven't taken a huge look at. But when I got in, Massive was like all the rage. Everyone was talking about Massive. So that's Native Instruments. At the time, I thought this was their only product. I didn't know that they were like a crazy huge music company. But Contact is by far probably my most used plugin. It's insane. So Contact was a super big thing for me. And Complete also brought with it Reactor. And Reactor is a bottomless pit of amazing possibilities. If you get Ableton, you get Max MSP, which is also very similar. So there's this player version. People make fully working VSTs in this thing. It's a full modular, virtual modular rig as well. You can have blocks and bring them in, and you can do like all the wiring and stuff and connect things to other things. And like they've even added wires. This is an amazing update. So this was done with Reactor 6. You can also go in and do builds. You can open up your own synths. I mean, Reactor is this like, it's such a huge pit of knowledge. It's incredibly hard to understate how massive this is. So Reactor's big. And you can go online and get like basically an endless supply of VSTs, Reactor user library. So these are VSTs essentially. They only run in Reactor. But these are things other people in the community have built for Reactor. And you can open them up and they're essentially just VSTs. They've improved the CPU usage on it a ton too. So you can have a lot of instances of Reactor like no problem. And now, of course, it depends on the ensemble you're running and things. But some of these things are like truly amazing works of art. And people went in and built them. Like you, if you had enough knowledge, you could go in and build something pretty incredible. Or you could just use it for performance. Or you could use it for like just production. Like Reactor is a really, truly awesome tool, sound design wise. And I should also mention, in Contact, you can go in and like script your own thing and record your own instrument and develop your own libraries. And this, I actually did get into this quite a bit. I'll show you some libraries that I've actually made. They are here, composing gloves. I have a lot of libraries that I started but never like got all the way into them. But I have like a glockenspiel. I made this music box with multiple mics. It's extremely soft. And just if I come in here, I can actually go into my scripts and you can make your own graphics. And I mean, it is awesome. So Reactor's like, you can do a lot of DSP focused things like processing things, very technical things. You can make art, just, regular music. Some people have even made games in it. People have made games in Contact. Contact and Reactor, honestly, are such a powerhouse. Like, it blows me away because I'm still learning. I'm still learning all this stuff about them. It's amazing, and their community forums are extremely active. If you're into Contact at all, you'll find out about this guy named Evil Dragon, which is sort of a legend for that sort of stuff. So those are as far as like synths go, those are big. Harmor was a big one for me, extremely useful. If I had to recommend one now, I think Phase Plant. You can rent to own for $10 a month, and you get all these amazing snap-ins, which can be used for mixing and things, as well as some really amazing modular capabilities. If I just flip through some of the presets here. This is a beta build, by the way. Oh no, this is the current build. There's a beta out right now, so there'll be some new stuff also if you're a Phase Plant user. Some really awesome things are possible with Phase Plant. It looks complicated, but once you start getting into the basics of it, it's really pretty simple. I actually have a series for Phase Plant. I also have a series for Harmor if you're brand new, and some workflow series. So yeah, that's do you guys have any questions about anything I've mentioned so far? Uh headphone amps, or headphone amps, I don't even know what I'm saying. Just like hardware or software based questions. Because I could go more into plugins. Plugins are kind of an endless pit. You're going to find out. There's tons and tons and tons of free ones too. Honestly, just get your DAW and start looking for free stuff. Get all that first. But I still hold Complete as a major good decision. It was one of the best buys I did. Behind my DAW on my computer, having Complete opened so many doors. It also ruined my wallet because you could see Spitfire stuff here. It's like orchestral stuff because I actually started out in Finale. So I wrote like sheet music, and that was like what I was really into. Yeah, Serum's awesome. Fun fact, Acid Pro 10 now ships with Serum if you do the Suite option, which kind of blew my mind because it's kind of like that came out of left field for me. I have Serum in here. Yeah, so Serum's another one. You can also do rent to own for $10 a month. Like you can see my plan's active. So, yeah. The Serum is another incredible synth, very industry standard right now as far as like amount of people using it. Super, super heavily used. It's a wavetable synth, which I don't know if I want to go into the different types of synthesizers, but there's a bunch of different types of synthesis. This is a wavetable synth. Steve Duda made it. Really, really, really chill guy too. I actually met him at NAMM. He's friends with the guys who made Phase Plant. He's friends with Kilohertz. So, and they kind of like expanded a bit on what I think Serum can do. So, very, very cool. I still think Serum has like more assets when it comes to editing wavetables. But yeah. Okay, so I was just kind of like blowing information out there as fast as I could go. Yeah, if you guys have any questions, do let me know. I'm going to move the chat over. So I can see it easier. Yeah, the discontinuation of the headphones. That was weird. I've been looking a ton at different types because I've been thinking about getting like a super nice pair as like a goal. Like when I reach this landmark, get this. But I've also been into building my own modular rig. So yeah, that is the stuff that you need. So I guess if we were to go over it, we need I've got my list here. You're going to need a computer. Don't sweat too much about the type of computer. It's you just need one that runs, and you'd be surprised what you can get to run on an older computer. Some DAWs are less CPU friendly, so that's worth knowing about. You're going to need a audio interface, some speakers, headphones. I would prioritize headphones first and then worry about speakers after. Generally, I would recommend having some mics. You need something to record that's going to add a lot of creative power to your setup. I recommend the SM57 or the Audio-Technica AT2020. I would also recommend the Zoom H4. Zoom H4. So this thing can record external mics into it. It's extremely handy. It's mobile, and it's got an XY configuration at the top with its own built-in mics. So it is very, very handy. It can actually act as an audio interface too. I wouldn't recommend it as an audio interface, but it can run as one. I've tried it out. So software wise, you need a DAW. There's a bunch of different DAWs. Of course, I'm FL favored, but the big ones, Ableton, Cubase, Logic, all those guys. So, a cool thing about Cubase too is they've got a super decked out notation editor. So if you like writing sheet music, that can be a useful thing if you can read music. And then plugins wise, we talked a bit about synths and generators and sample players, but I didn't really mention mixing. There is a company called Melda Audio that has a lot of great mixing plugins. I think they're well, I guess I'll hold back my opinions some on the interfaces, but they're very, very capable plugins. So if you go for the effects, and they have different bundles, and they also have like a rent to own as well, which I really support that business model. Rent to own is really, really cool. It's very like consumer aware, I think. So yeah, and they recently have started also releasing a lot more on their drum plugin, which I have not checked out. And I think Super Looper's also really new. Yeah, new M Turbo Delay. So if you go to bundles, oh, and they have a free effects suite as well. That's really, really cool. They've got here's the free plugins, 37. Really, really great. I think that most DAWs now actually do a really good job of providing you with great fundamental tools. You're going to get a good reverb. You're going to get a good equalizer. You're going to get a good compressor. Usually you get a good multi-band compressor. DAWs will provide you that stuff. And they'll almost always be in a format that only works in their DAW, which is, that's fine. Benefits also of FL, you get updates for life, and that has been really nice. So you pay for it once, and you get updates for life. So that's amazing. So yeah, I think I'm going to call it here, unless you guys have any questions. I'll give you like 4 or 5 minutes because my voice is starting to go. I didn't think it would kill out on me that fast. There we go. Yeah, so Serum's great. I could promote FL pretty hard in a lot of different categories, but just because of how much I know the editing. But yeah, well, I'm going to take off. Hopefully that answers some of your questions. If you think of any, I'll drop them down in the comments. And of course, the EDM Reddit page, I guess we'll cover some resources real quick too. If you go to Reddit and then look up EDM production, there's a lot of great people there who are willing to help. And they're really cool. Don't be afraid. They've got, they recently added some new mods. Hopefully that'll help with the posts that show up here. But this is a great resource. There's also one called R Audio Production Deals. r/audio production deals. And this one it's basically just a thread of all the sales that are going on. And some people even include strategies like buy this here, use this discount code, then upgrade it here, then do this. And you can like get things for much cheaper. It's been pretty cool. How do I get my patterns to show the MIDI in the pattern selector? Okay, so when you pick a pattern, there's this thing up here, which is the thing I use most of the time. And then first you'll need MIDI in your pattern. So like, I just realized this isn't muted. Okay, so say you've got a beautiful pattern of sine waves. Just like that. What you're going to want to do is if you come up here and I believe if you right click on it, it opens your pattern selector. It even previews it for you. But yeah. So yeah, right clicking on here is where you go for this. I don't use this very much. I'm usually using this pattern picker here, or I'm working with the patterns directly and cloning and copying and shifting them around. That, or I was gonna say something else, but it totally skipped my mind. But yeah, so that's typically what I'm doing when it comes to that sort of a thing. I don't use this one a bunch. I do use the plugin picker a ton. You hit F8, it brings up your plugin picker. Or if you right click on the plus icon, it brings it up and you can just type what you want. That's amazing. High quality music type doesn't need a simple skill set. I do not know what Lithuania high quality music type is. But whenever you're learning a genre, you just want to study the things that are typically done with the genre and write those down and just stay true to those tropes. Like if the genre you're making never uses orchestral instruments, don't use orchestral instruments. I mean, how it shows MIDI on the left where your pattern sits. Brazilian deep house. Yeah, I think most deep house genres are more about ambience and less about like being really technically savvy. Like I think in some genres like drum and bass, there's like liquid drum and bass isn't about like super technical sound design. It's about like getting certain sounds right. But like other types of drum and bass have these, you can get very very technical and flex sort of how good you are at sound design. So as far as Brazilian deep house, I don't know specifically Brazilian, but as far as deep house goes, that's definitely more of a vibe to me than like a technical genre. Okay. So that would be just, you would learn the sounds that people use, try and figure out the methods people typically use to make certain sounds, because some genres have stuff like that. And the mixing that's done, how things are prioritized, the instrumentation. Those are the things you're going to want to get right. I keep wanting to open this pattern, but I realize it's just opening this because there's nothing on here. So you could just put some MIDI in. Was this what you're talking about? Having the MIDI like this? And like if I put MIDI in the pattern, it's going to show up. And if I like stretch it out, it'll stretch the pattern out as well. Unless I adjust the pattern. So say I move it like that. If I come back in and stretch it further, it no longer responds. So I usually try to leave patterns alone as far as stretching them goes until I'm sure I want to change the length and I plan on not doing anything further from a workflow standpoint. It shows MIDI on the left. See, the on the left part confuses me when you're saying MIDI. But that's how I work with patterns. I'm going to wait for one more response and then see if I answered your question. Just under the three icons. The three icons. What window are the three icons in? Are you talking about these guys? You put a pattern down. Did I clear my pattern out? You're talking about these where you like can change the various things you're editing? Under the three icons. I feel like I'm misunderstanding what you're asking. Of patterns, audio, and automation. Okay, yeah, so it is these three. Just to the left of, oh, you're talking about this. Okay, I barely use this. This was added in, was it in 20 or in 12? And I just have not, I'm so used to my workflow. I just never really incorporated it. I know kind of how it works. You wanted to know how it shows MIDI to the left. You want to know like how it's doing this right now, or like because this just automatically put this here, or are you talking about something else? Because as you add patterns, this is going to automatically start adding things. So like we could put some MIDI in, and it knows. And since I put in drums, it puts in drums. But as soon as you put something in the piano roll, it's going to show that information. See, there it is. Yours doesn't show MIDI. Oh, well, you could be on the audio or the automation tab. Does it show your patterns? Because that could be it. What makes well, not this thing cool in particular, but what they did was they added, I don't use it like I could, but like you can drag and drop and lock a track to a channel like this. And if I change like the color or something here, it changes over there. It updates everywhere, and it creates a mixer track for it, and they all talk to each other. That's freaking amazing. But as far as this, I don't know why yours wouldn't show MIDI. Does your pattern have MIDI in it? It's got to have MIDI in it. Can I take away the MIDI? Are you telling me I can get rid of the MIDI here? Because I can change it away. Or can you zoom these? You might be zoomed in like this. If you hold Alt and then scroll, and specifically it's the left Alt. Does the other Alt work? Oh, both Alts work. Doesn't matter which Alt. If you scroll down, it'll scale them. Wow, I don't know. Try are they expanded all the way? Does it have them expanded, but they're still empty? Oh, you can use this thing right here too. That's handy. These don't go as small as I thought they would go. I guess that's pretty small. Glad to be of help. That's a general truth in almost any window in FL. If you hold Alt and scroll, changes the vertical scaling. Yeah, you're welcome. Glad I could help you. Yeah, I know it's frustrating when you see something on someone's like setup and you're like, how did they do that? Where did they get that menu from? One I do a lot that I get comments on is I bring this thing up. Finding patterns in the playlist using the channel rack. Is there a way from the channel rack to playlist? When you load someone's FLP, it's kind of silly searching for where you put that instrument pattern. So usually the way I get to patterns, like let's say I have like a bunch of patterns and let's like make them all unique. So they're all different patterns. And let's just pretend that there's like just tons, like they're everywhere. And I want to get to one to edit. I mean, if you just double click it, it's going to open up that pattern. Like if I change, it goes to pattern 2. Like this switches to pattern 2. This switches to pattern 4. That's typically how I navigate patterns when I'm working. So what makes it nice is I don't have to know the names of anything. I just click on what I want and then boom, it takes me there. You can, from the channel rack, you can't necessarily get to it from here. You would have to pick the pattern from here or from the pattern editor. Oh, isn't that, wow, that was some Beethoven right there. But yeah, you'd have to pick it from here. But I typically work like this. This is also how I usually do drums. I'll do like a measure. I'll do like 4 individual measures, and then I'll click to scroll between the measures instead of having one really big long one, typically. When you load, so it's kind of silly searching where you put the pattern. So you're talking about finding the pattern in the playlist using the channel rack. So you're saying I've got patterns here. Is there a way to find where they put it? Oh, okay, yeah, you're welcome. As far as, yeah, finding the pattern, so say they've got like on pattern 1, I don't know of a way. That could be a cool feature request for it to highlight all the instances of pattern 1 over here. I think I'm able to, like a search function kind of thing. Will this search in here? I've never looked for that. Is there a search function? Well, if I have my keyboard focus in here, and I hit Control F and type pattern 1, nah, it applies over here still. Yeah, I don't know. That is a really interesting idea. I've never wanted to do that, but it might just be because I've grown used to not being able to do that. So, yeah, go on Loop Talk. Put that in like a form request. It could be pretty interesting. They've got a lot. The next one I'm really hoping for two things. I'm hoping they add flats. I really want flats on the notes. I'm so tired of seeing sharps on everything. Like I want to be able to declare a key like B flat minor or whatever and have it automatically, put the flats in cuz you don't think of A sharp. You don't do that. You think of B flat. And a lot of the keys I'm using. So I really hope for flats, and I really hope for in live performance mode loop recording. I know it's been requested by a lot of people. I don't know if there's some other feature that's getting requested a ton. One that I also see floating around that I think would also be really cool is having effects kind of like Ableton's channel rack, but in like the wrapper. So that would have to link this to a mixer track for sure. But to have the effects in the mixer track reflected in the wrapper up here would be really amazing as well. All right, well, I'm going to peace out. You folks have a lovely night. Thanks for tuning in. I appreciate all of your input and have a blessed night.